is Yinka Danmole. I am a designer and curator. I run my own studio practice called Studio Danmole. So back in 2015, we were asked by the guys at the MAC to develop a program for kind of young and emerging artists, and me and my career producer called Amy Martin worked to develop Future Curious. And what we really wanted to do initially with Future Curious was kind of explore how artists would be making work in the future somewhat, and kind of engaging artists in this conversation around what the future of arts practices will look like essentially. So we kind of proposed this question to them in a series of labs, talks and kind of workshops and kind of happenings and whatnot across a kind of a season period during 2015. And yeah, so the kind of whole point of it was really to kind of ask artists to kind of question, you know, what digital tools they'll be using in the future as well, to make artwork with, and kind of what could that look like for them as a practitioner as well, and start considering that and seeing how their work and practice may shift essentially. Again, it's that thing of, I think, as Future Curious, we really want to break those barriers where we feel that a lot of our future narratives are being dictated by Hollywood and pop culture, and kind of start to really ask different questions about, you know, what kind of future world do we want to live in, and hopefully by asking those questions we start to really consider the way we are living now, and wanting to ask about actually what kind of social change do we want to kind of start happening now for a future we do want essentially. Inception of it was all about kind of developing and growing young emerging artists to kind of think about, again, their future arts practices, but also getting them involved in developing pieces of work with us. So for instance, we worked with Random Acts and Rural Media to kind of develop 2 short films with a collective of 8 young emerging artists from different backgrounds. We had illustrators, we did have some filmmakers, but we also had people from really alternative backgrounds of practices essentially, and we kind of worked with them to develop 2 short film pieces essentially, and we kind of gave them a brief of from a quote actually, which said the future is determined by those who get involved. That's something we really strongly believed in, and asked the young people to kind of respond to that brief, and also asked them to kind of create scenarios of a future world essentially around that quote as well. So in terms of future-wise now, in terms of Future Curious, how we want young and emerging artists to be involved is we kind of really want to be growing a community. We really want to grow a community of young emerging artists that kind of really want to have these conversations, that do want to engage and do want to start to develop work which kind of really asks people to explore future narratives and future scenarios, and how them or their cultures are being represented in the future, and how do they actually want their futures to look like, especially as well. And I think again, like the futurist Chris Barnes has said, we believe there's such an important role young and emerging artists can play now in creating better futures. And you know, we're not trying to say, hey, we're going to solve the world's problems by, you know, just simply creating this program. But what we're saying, it's really important that we have these conversations now about it, rather than wait for some of these issues to arise in the future essentially. So really having those conversations now in the hope that we may be able to shift the direction in which our values of, you know, our society goes really. 2 things I should say about Future Curious in terms of a aim for us, and one of it is about having a conversation about how do we create a new wave of authors of our futures, essentially, in citizens. How do citizens take control and ownership of our futures, essentially? Going back to that quote again, the future is there for those who get involved, essentially. And also this conversation around future-proofing cultures, and what I mean by this is kind of how do we provide futures or future narratives where other cultures are represented in those narratives essentially, and can see yourself being see yourself placed within those futures. And one of my pieces of research work I'm really interested in exploring is around language, especially for instance that of broken English and other English dialects essentially. I've come from a background which is very much from Southeast London, to our blocks where, again, the common kind of somewhat vocabulary is kind of used through kind of slang words and so on and so forth. And I guess what the conversation I'm trying to have with that is kind of exploring a future where actually we're not all somewhat proposed to speak in the same tongue or in the same way, but actually there's some diversity in the way we choose to communicate. So there's a project where I'm really looking to explore that, and really looking to explore how we may converse in the future, essentially, and how then could actually new tongues that have kind of been born, like Creole and kind of broken English and Pidgin, I should say, from kind of Western Africa have kind of been born, and what's the future of those, and then how is that somewhat being passed down and evolved towards generations somewhat. So that's another conversation I have with my work.